T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. Tonight, I'm joined once again by Sir Alex Myers. We're going to be talking about our plans for the upcoming breeding season, our pairings we're going to make, things we're going to change about our procedures, etc. Before we get into the conversation, as always, USARC. So USARC is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, to live this lifestyle. Check out usarc.org for all of the information you need to know about the organization. That website is also where you can find alerts on legislation introduced at either local levels or the national level, as well as updates on progress on any pieces of legislation. You can also become a member of USARC at usarc.org. As a community, we have strength in numbers. The more people that are behind the cause, the better. And here we are. Thank you to everybody who is tuned in live on YouTube right now. Thank you to everybody who is listening after the fact. If you are here on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. We drop a new podcast every single day of the week from some of the best hosts in the game, talking about a wide variety of topics from within the reptile industry. So if you are a reptile podcast fan, you have come to the right place. We are also on all of the audio platforms, be that Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the Trap Talk Reptile Network. Follow and a 5-star review on any of those platforms would be most appreciated. With that housekeeping out of the way, let's bring Alex onto the show. What's going on, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me back.
Yep, it's been a little while.
So I cut you off
twice in a row. Off to a great start.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can tell you haven't done a podcast for a little while. You're a little rusty.
Yeah, I am. I've been busy, but yeah. I appreciate you having me back again. And yeah, it was about a year ago that we did like a season update as far as what we were planning for 2025. And yeah, it's weird to think how fast this year's gone by, and we're about to discuss goals for 2026. So
yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, what's even crazier to think is that before we know it, the 2-year anniversary of the first episode we did will be coming up. So I think it's like 4 months away. So, not super close, but my gosh, closer than you think.
That's 2 years. 2 years of Kush's Corner. That's dude. You've been bringing some killer episodes. I've been listening to a handful of them, and I'm sure lots of people who tune in are learning lots of valuable things about scrub pythons, especially. But I mean, trying to think like some of the co-host episodes, like we had Brian Waterloo on talking about the history of lace monitors. I mean, that was great. Casey Schulz, that was fun. Got to give props to Cody up in Canada. Cody Joe, the reptile shopper at Deer. He listening to that episode a couple times, I re-listened to it, and that really sort of helped me dial in. I've made it no secret when I've been on here. I'm the curator of a zoological facility, and so sort of figuring out food cycle and stuff, I was actually able to breed some different python species this year at work, and I'm putting that into effect right now as we head into winter up here by me in Minnesota. So it's just, it's been a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you having me on for co-hosting duties just to be right there listening. And I, hope everybody who's tuned in, whether you've listened to episodes I've co-hosted or listen to all the amazing content Steven's putting out here on the Trap Talk Network, it's good stuff. And I think it helps everybody become better animal keepers, better animal breeders, and just more educated in the discipline of herpetoculture, right? Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, anything to kind of move the needle forward a little bit, I think is for the best. So yeah, I appreciate you being back. Quick question over here from Uncle Mike.
Oh,
how the emeralds are doing.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, the emeralds are rocking. So I guess for background for anybody listening, we at the facility I curate, we had a pair of emeralds that came and they were wild caught, which I'm sure anybody who's listened to the episodes with Chris Rice and whatnot knows that can be hit or miss. But I ended up sort of doing a hybrid technique of some of the advice Chris gave, and then more notably, just because I'd been to Mike's place back when I was living in Illinois, Mike was about 40 minutes north of me. I sort of did a hybrid setup of his naturalistic emerald display with some of the advice Chris had suggested as far as acclimating imported animals. And
Cool.
I'll tell you, since then, Mike, the male sometimes just refuses food, which doesn't worry me, but the female has never missed a meal, and both of them shed in one piece perfectly. So humidity's on point, no regurges at all, and we're talking these are animals that have eaten since 2020, the start of 2024, about 20 times or so. I feed about every 3 to 5 weeks, and no regurges. Like they're doing their things and rocking. So I really appreciated your insight on that, Mike. You really helped me out with getting those emeralds established, because I won't lie, I was very scared with wild caught stuff. That was something I was sort of put through the ring of fire. My employer was like, fix this. And again, thanks to episodes here on Kush's Corner and just all in the True Tuesdays, and of course listening to Mike. I was on the phone with him a couple times specifically about snakes, which I feel like most people would consider Mike's monitors. You're talking about emeralds, but he's successfully reproduced them. And again, since he sort of lives in the same climate zone as I do, I was able to translate the husbandry, thinking if I'm in the Midwest, he's in the Midwest, some of the aspects that he was doing when maintaining caninus. I mean, it was very useful, and the snakes are thriving now. I'm very happy about it. So
that's awesome.
Appreciated, Mike. Thank you. I dropped my coaster.
No one would have known. So how are the lizards doing these days? How's stuff going?
Pretty good. Breeding season is pretty much over for me. Usually, if I can see copulations, it's anywhere from January till about May with the water dragons. And then the sailfins sort of around the same. I did have one girl that was cycling later in the year. And so once I sort of picked up on her cycle on roughly the number of days, she would start swelling up again, yoking more follicles between clutches. I would throw her in with the male, and they would lock like clockwork. So that was really cool, because what I have been finding with the sailfins, and Scott told me this, there's no smooth talking with Hydrosaurus. The female's either going to be receptive or she's not going to be. And thankfully, just from reviewing my notes from last year with the females cycling infertile eggs, they were roughly around the same time. And just this time, now that I'm actually, working with the animals personally, as I had mentioned probably on episodes in the past, my lizards were at my parents' when I moved. And so I was sort of just going back and forth talking with my dad about when did she lay, what did she look like. But it was really nice to have a full calendar year.
Yeah.
When eggs were laid, taking photos, writing down how the female's body morphology was changing, when she was swelling, when she got really skinny after laying, pre-laying behaviors, a lot of test digging from the Hydrosaurus, which was actually kind of cool. Because with the water dragons, which I'm mostly used to, they'll test dig, or sometimes an experienced female just knows when she's ready, and then next thing you know, she just looks skinny. She won't even test dig. But the hydros, at least this time, seem to be pretty adamant on digging about a week before they lay, probing the soil, checking, and then they would lay. So it was pretty cool. So things are going well in the lizard world. I've got a few clutches of eggs from both species incubating that'll hopefully hatch by the end of the year. Nice. But overall pretty solid. It was an exciting year for water dragons, because this was my first actual attempt of having completely unrelated offspring. So like different groups, Philip Leitz has talked about it on the Project Herpetoculture podcast. A lot of P's in that sentence there, excuse me. But just sort of the idea of eliminating confirmation bias and sample bias. It was kind of nice to see similar behaviors that I had observed with my smaller sample size of water dragons when I was breeding them throughout high school and my early years in college, and now doing that with 12 adults. And, you know, this girl from group A should lay in 28 to 35 days, and she did. And then another girl, you know, the body morphology was the same between them, and these are animals that are kept in completely different group enclosures. So just, you know, it's reassuring that what I'm doing is working for the species, and yeah, a pretty solid year overall. The one thing that I will talk about, though, I guess if we're gonna recap here, as exciting as it has been to hatch different bloodlines of water dragons, I had really bad egg viability. So out of 12 clutches, I'll likely have only hatched 5 by the end of the year. And I think part of that was with
5
the
clutches of the 12.
Yeah, of the 12, yeah. I had a lot of bad eggs. And
Okay.
part of me suspects it was the age of some of the males, because the first clutches from the new up-and-coming youngsters were great, and everything else has been pretty bad. But those males are only around 1.5 years, 2 years old. Whereas the one female, which ended up laying, you know, 3 out of the 5 clutch, you know, 3 out of the 5 good clutches, she was with a big, mature 7-year-old wild caught male that I've got. So, like, he was primed and ready. Whereas these two are young. And the one thing that I'll also mention is that I ended up getting those 2 males in the middle of my winter season. So I moved everybody up to Minnesota the weekend of the October Tinley Park show. So pretty much exactly a year ago. And that one male was the main one that came up with that group. And the other 2 males I ended up acquiring in the middle of January. And so I'm almost wondering if them coming into the, you know, cycle in the middle of the dry season, I wonder if I would have had better results if they had shown up in October and they went through the cool down and then went into spring. So we'll see how next year goes, but that's probably, unfortunately, the one downside, and maybe a blessing in disguise that I wasn't overran with 140 water dragons.
Sure. So do you think the issue was how young they were, or the fact that you didn't get a chance to cycle them properly, or maybe some of both?
I'm just going to say a bit of both, man. There are many factors in that case, but they were young boys. The one in particular, though, he was definitely, I think, putting more energy towards growth. It was a young subadult wild caught male that I got from somebody. He was only about 2 feet in my care back in January, and he put on size fast. I measured him a couple days ago. Super calm, really nice male. Now he's pushing almost 30 inches. So, like, he easily, you know, put on half a foot or so in the past, like 8 months. So a lot of growth, and he's almost getting to the size of my main big male that did most of the breeding this year. So yeah. And that's what's made it fun, is some form of enrichment that I've been doing is I do let the males combat. And that was something I experimented with in the breeding season just to try and boost some testosterone. I've got a spot in my reptile room where the floor is open. It's sort of my workspace. I can just set stuff down, you know, store duvia and stuff there. But I just put the males on the floor. And so, you know, if you put 2 males in a cage, that's a death sentence, because that's each of their territory. But if you put them on neutral ground, they look really impressive. They flare up and they sort of spin around each other, and they try to push each other over. So they won't physically attack. It's a combat display to see who's the strongest male. Kind of like, you know, monitors when they do the wrestling. Yeah. So I think by putting them through, you know, or putting them into that neutral territory, it's going to be a little bit stressful, but I honestly think it's beneficial. You know, they're working their muscles to, you know, fill up their nuchal crests and their sagittal crests with blood. They look really impressive. They're bringing out colors that you wouldn't normally see if they were relaxed. And I'd like to think, you know, that's something a male's going to do in the wild if he wants to defend his turf. And I'll just be curious to see if that will also help with, you know, egg viability and fertility next year, just to really boost the testosterone and sort of anger the boys into fighting each other. So just something that I've been focusing on this year, more or less, is now that I kind of have the lizards that I want. And there's a lot of topics now about enrichment and welfare. And obviously, I think some of it is a little bit over exaggerated. And I know Zach Lohman on Colubrid and Colubroid has talked about it being weaponized by the quote unquote advanced hobbyists. But I also think to some extent, as you said, if we can push the needle a little bit forward, I have been thinking about how can I make the box that my lizards are living in more, full of stimulus, keeping them busy.
Yeah, sure.
And I think especially with the water dragons, I've talked about it. I'm raising most of them in like the grow tent greenhouse setups because I don't want them nose rubbing. So that sort of presents a challenge to a lizard like them, which is very visual. And I think by having the grow tents open when I'm working in the room and they're seeing other dragons from across the room, or a water dragon is staring at a 3-foot sailfin from across the room, that might invoke some type of response, and just a way to keep their brains working and not necessarily stagnating in a environment. I mean, maybe this sounds crazy saying it, but it's just something I've been thinking on. And the lizards seem to be more alert about it. It's kind of cool because I'll notice if I just sit in the room and I don't even stare into the grow tents, the mini windows, I can hear lizards moving around. So it's almost like I sometimes wonder if making them think and have these interactions, it's just enriching their lives and making lizards be lizards, for lack of a better term. So that's been the other thing I've been focusing on this year with keeping my animals, because breeding them, not to sound too cocky here, but breeding Chinese water dragons is pretty easy for me. I've been doing it a while. This is just my real attempt with multiple individuals, and I think next year we'll know for sure if it was a move thing, or maybe I do have some work to do if I have really bad egg viability again. But I said maybe it's a blessing in disguise that I wasn't overrun with hundreds of water dragons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So on that topic of kind of letting them see each other, in your experience with that so far, have you seen any indication that these animals are stressed out by that visual stimulus? Because I remember a few years ago, shoot, it may have even been like 5 years ago at this point, but I was on a podcast with Brandon Van Asten, and he had mentioned how that I'm trying to remember the exact context, but it was I think it was his tree monitors, like when they were able to see some of his other monitors, that like they were stressed, they wouldn't breed, and then he put up visual barriers, and then that solved the issue. Obviously could be a very different scenario here, but do you think you've seen any sort of stress from that occurring?
Only if it would be in the moment. I guess maybe the difference, and I should have clarified on this, is when the grow tents are shut, they can't see like another male from across the room at all.
Right.
So I'd imagine in like what you said with Brandon's case, if he's got tree monitors which don't bash their face into glass the way a water dragon would, and you've got two males, say in an aisle of cages, and he's neighbors across from another male, and he can constantly see that male through the glass, that's probably quite stressful and would reduce breeding. I don't see how a temporary male combat ritual would be stressful if they're going through that in the wild. But at the same time, I've got 3 males. I had 4, and I just ended up letting one go to a buddy of mine because it was not acclimating for me. But maybe what I'll do is next year is the big male, who I know bred perfectly fine without going through male combat, with or without going through male combat, I'll just not have him see another male this spring, and maybe I'll experiment and see if the 2 that I already sort of had bad luck with egg viability, if I make them combat again and the females that are with them have bad eggs, then that might be a good point. I wish I had my notebook on me. I'll note that down, but I'm worth trying something out. So
yeah, no doubt. We got some confirmation from some Canadians on that exact point of Van Asten. But yes, cages only face one direction, so that makes a lot of sense. So at this point of the year for you, it's October, early October when we're doing this. What is your current strategy as to prepare your animals for the upcoming breeding season?
Honestly, it's pretty simple. they're starting to detect that the night drop is getting colder. So within my room, where all the lizards are, that just the radiation from the heat lamps, that room gets hot. And so in the summer, it's hitting daytime highs where I've had the room reach 91. And then at night, it's usually sitting around 80, 82. But now what I'm seeing is that, like, for example, today the high was 87. But this morning when I went into the room and I just make my rounds, it was 76 in the room. So it's probably 78. Okay. So they're picking up now that the night drop is going low. It's starting to get drier. So in their mind, what I'm trying to mimic is a dry season. A little bit less moisture in the air. And in theory, if the dry season is how I experienced it when I was over in Indonesia, the real key factor is there's less cloud cover. And that's when I felt how cold it got at night. It easily hit, 70 degrees, which on the equator was quite shocking to me.
Yeah.
But again, it's the dry season, less cloud cover, all that heat goes out. Rainy season for 8 months, cloud cover, trapping the heat. So it's kind of what I'm mimicking now. I'm not too worried about the lizards going into another cycle since I'm keeping males with the females in the case of the water dragons. And the main way I avoid that is I just cut feeding back. So instead of feeding the water dragons every other day, now they're getting fed 2, maybe 3 times a week if I let them. If I do a really big meal of superworms and I let everybody gorge themselves, then I might wait 7 days come peak December. I don't really, I guess, calculate how I'm going to do everything in a week. I sort of just eyeball it. But the idea is by providing less food, the females seem to know that it's just time to slowly gain weight through the dry season when food's available. So that way, as soon as spring comes, the nights get warmer and I start feeding them every other day. They know that it's time to lay eggs and use those fat stores. So that's pretty much the plan from October till January. Slowly feed them, let them get a little bit cold, and then once it warms up, they'll have the fat stores ready to get rocking again. And I've pretty much done that with the sailfins this year too. Just instead of bugs, they're getting protein twice a week instead of 4 times a week, and then salads every other day. So pretty simple. But,
so then when do you kind of start to ramp everybody back up? You said January time?
Yeah, that's just when I noticed it. Because once we get past the winter equinox, with where my lizard building is, it's on a west-facing wall. And so as the daylight gets longer and the sun heats that wall, the room just starts to warm up.
Got it.
And
okay.
So last year, like I said, the days start getting longer, meaning there's more sun hitting that wall, meaning the room gets warmer, it stays warmer longer. And I just watch the lizards. It's easier with the water dragons because I can keep them together pretty much year round. And you just, as soon as you see females starting to swell up a little bit in the middle of the body, and usually their crests are starting to get torn up because the males are trying to breed with them. And I've said it before, they're kind of secretive with breeding. I've only ever seen at least 3 true locks. Sometimes I've walked in and I see a male try and mount a female, but it doesn't necessarily mean he gets an insertion. But yeah, I think, like any wild animal, copulation for a reptile is sort of a vulnerable time for both the male and the female. So they probably wait till they can't hear me or anybody in the room or any background noise, and they just get it done. And honestly, the biggest thing for me is watching the females. You can really tell when they go from creating yolk follicle or, yolking follicles to the state of gravidity, because with the lizards, they just draw so much of that fat from their tail base and their legs, and they sort of go from like a football shape to a pear shape with really skinny tail bases and legs. And I'm like, well, 2 to 3 weeks they're going to be laying eggs, depending on when I miss, because I usually miss the ovulation. I never see it. And then I usually just find a bunch of dirt in the water bowl and a really skinny lizard, and we get to it. So I can imagine, though, in this case, for the people tuning in, I'm looking at the comments and I see quite a few snake people. So how about your case, Stephen? I'll pose the same questions. How did this year go overall? What are some things you think, made some things not work? And now that it's October for you, what are you doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, like this breeding year was pretty disappointing overall as far as numbers. I was just very fortunate that the species and localities and whatnot that I did produce were ones that were like very high up on my priority list. So, I can't really complain, but as far as like number of good clutches, definitely left a lot to be desired. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was just too overextended into like tons of different species and projects and whatnot. Um, so over the summer, I've made a bit of an effort to, move on some side projects that I really enjoy, but frankly, we're just kind of taking some of my attention away from my main projects. Obviously being primarily the scrub pythons, but then the spilotes and then the pituophis. And I think because of that kind of fractured attention, I just didn't do some things as well as I should have. We had a weird winter here last year. It was really dry, really late, and I just couldn't get my venomous rooms cold enough. So like I had a handful of litters, but I had 3 litters of one baby, like one baby and a bunch of slugs. And I, from talking to people and just from what I kind of put together, I'm equating that to temperatures not being cold enough in brumation, and frankly, talking to you about a lot of how you're doing brumation at your job with the colubrids, kind of reinforced that belief for myself. I had my colubrids in those rooms as well, and I had some good clutches, I had some bad clutches. So, who's to really say what the cause of some of that was? First time breeders, or I think in the cases of some of my pits, I think I had the incubation medium a little bit too wet. I set them up the same way I did with my python eggs, but I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of ridiculous. The incubator is 7 to 9 degrees cooler, and that evaporation is going to occur over a much longer period of time. You go in there and you check 40 days later and it's like, oh, wow, this bedding is still damp. Like there's been very little exchange there. So I think that was an issue there. After just having like a year of actual spilotes breeding under my belt and a couple good clutches, I think I got the cycle pretty good what I did with them. So I'm going to do pretty much the same thing this year, where I didn't take them to a full brumation, quite like a, pit or whatever.
Not the usual 55 Fahrenheit or whatever everybody asks for.
Right. So like they're on the main level of my house, and I just I like the heat, I don't think turned on almost at all for the entire winter. So like in the morning, I would come down there and it would be, it'd probably be like 65 degrees down there. And then throughout the day, it would creep back up into the mid 70s or so. And then it would dip back down. And then during this period, I was also, I wasn't feeding them. And then I was changing the light cycle, where I think by the end, I maybe had their lights on for like 5 or 6 hours a day.
Oh, you really cut it short.
Yeah.
That's interesting, especially since they're pretty equatorial too. When I was in Costa Rica, I was in range for pilatus. I didn't see any, but even being there in December, which would be our winter, and it was still 12-12, pretty much even.
Okay.
So,
and that could have been
captivity is different too.
I just was kind of equating it a little bit to what I do with my rattlesnakes that are from a similar area. Obviously, they're higher elevation than the spilotes, but geographically pretty similar. So, I don't think that was as important, but I think at least to, spraying less and kind of doing everything to create that famine state. And then kind of come January, I think kind of like when I got back from Pomona, everyone was just kind of moving around a bit more. I started to turn the heat on at night to where it wasn't getting quite as cold anymore, even though the outside temp was still just as cold, if not colder than it was in December. And then, got him back feeding, and pretty pretty shortly thereafter, I started getting copulation. I think like February is when I had a decent amount of copulation. I had my one pair, my Veracruz, breed like a little earlier than this time last year, which is just like totally off season, totally random. And then I actually had my female cycled again in brumation and laid just the tiniest little slugs you've ever
I remember you telling me about that. We had a case like that at work with the we hatched melanota this year.
Mm-hmm.
And out of a clutch of 6, we had 2 that were like follicle size eggs, not the really long typical boy egg eggs. And they hatched, but they were really weak babies and they failed to thrive. I couldn't even get them to eat and they just dropped.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you had that with Spiloia. But I mean, it's another arboreal colubrid. So
and I'm pretty sure that she did not cycle this fall. I've been kind of keeping tabs on her, which I'm actually pretty happy about. Like, it would have been cool to get babies sooner, but then I have a better shot at a double clutch next year. Especially after talking to Jason Hood on here a couple of months ago, I realized that I really have been not feeding them enough, especially during breeding season. You know, with a long, slender colubrid, I feel like it's really easy to worry about overfeeding. But like when he was telling me that he'll feed a female like a medium rat and like 3, day-old chick-sized quail, I'm like, okay, that's a lot of food all at once. Got it. Noted. So just based on how the feeder breeding has been going over here, they've been getting like the females like 3 jumbo mice at a time or so. When the time comes when everybody's warming back up, definitely going to be pushing the females hard. The males all have pretty good body weight, and I really don't feel the need. Honestly, the main purpose of feeding the males is to distract them while the females eat, since they're all cohabbed. I have definitely had to pull Spilotes apart a few times. Worth it to have them cohabbed, but a major pain in the ass. So I think with the venomous, I had a decent summer of breeding. I want to say I got confirmed locks from 8 female hots. And then 2 maybes where I saw a lot of courtship but never actually got a confirmed copulation. So, it would be a step up from the year before. If I could get 8 litters or so, that would be really cool. And I'm just going to be really particular about trying to get that room into the 50s at night this year. Mid 50s if I can. Probably I had like a small fan in an open window pulling air in, but I think put a higher powered fan in its place, which is also nice to be able to shut the AC off for a little while, because my unit goes down to 60. I'm like, all right, well, that's only going to do me so much good. So just turn the unit off and just really focus on pulling air into the room. One of the things that I've been trying to do with my like collection focus, so to speak, where I have 2 rooms that I have venomous in. I'm trying to condense that down into 1 room by thinning the group down a little bit. Because the other room that I have some in, it's where I have my rodents. And inevitably, when you have a bunch of warm-blooded animals in a space, you're even further combating that area warming up. So, and it just fries the AC units like nobody's business. So my goal is to be able to have that room be all feeders, probably even raise like the baby quail in there as well. And then I'm replacing the AC with a like a 12 or 14 inch exhaust fan. I forgot what I ordered, but seeing if I can regulate it that way. And obviously it would keep it cleaner as well to have an exhaust fan over an air conditioner. So, that's going to be that. And then I can really focus on just that one room. Like, I'm getting this room cold. I have my colubrids brumating in here. I have my rattlesnakes and palm vipers brumating in here. Like, this is important. This is it. And then, do the Spilotes cycle the same way and just increase the food a bit more when it comes to breeding time. And then with the scrubs, I'm not sure if we've ever had this discussion on one of our episodes or not. We've done so many, but the year that I moved, I had a lot of good success. I had 10 females lay, but I had 6 of them go egg bound that year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just trying to troubleshoot, okay, what the hell happened here? And this year I didn't have any egg bound snakes, period. So, great. Whatever it was, it seems to have resolved itself. But I couldn't really tell what it was exactly that made the difference. And I'm not sure I'll really ever know, honestly, but that's all right. As long as it's not happening, I'm good. But one of the things that I did to try to combat it was the year that I moved, because I knew I was moving and I wouldn't be able to feed anybody for a while with the move. I kind of did a little bit of extra feeding in the late summer and early fall before I moved. And I had some females that were overweight, but I think in hindsight, that was more a result of having fed them up in previous years and they didn't breed. And then I didn't fast them after that. Like, I just kind of kept regularly feeding them. So they just never had a time to, for that metabolism to shut down, for them to not accumulate extra body fat and whatnot. So last year I was kind of worried about that extra feeding. Maybe that played a part, because obviously, a fat snake is going to become egg bound.
Yeah.
Easier than a thin snake. And I think I just didn't feed enough, period, with my scrubs. And I think I fed at the wrong time. And like about the time, January or so, when I was kind of feeding everybody back up, I had to switch rodent suppliers. So like the worst time of year to have to do that is right when you really need the food the absolute most.
Mm-hmm.
So that really screwed me. But luckily I have a really good local person who I'm getting rats from these days, and, couldn't be happier with the setup. And I'm, producing most of what I'm feeding now anyway. Perfect. So yeah, it really is. I just, I'm not gonna have rats in the house. Like, yeah. I'm not gonna do that. That'll be the last thing. But I've been experimenting with growing up ASFs to like medium rat size to see how long it takes. And ultimately I don't think it's going to be worth it. Just how it takes them, like, a female, you never could. The males will get, like above 80 grams, but it does take them a while. So like for some of the colubrids, like the bulls and pines that I want to feed mediums to, I've just been feeding them to a small rat size softers at a clip, and they've been loving it. But anyway, so with the scrubs, I went back to what I thought was a mistake that the year that I moved, and with some guidance from the Python King himself, have kind of devised a plan for this year. And I feel like for me, I've kind of, my breeding life has kind of gone like this, like good year, not so great year, good year, not so great year. So if I'm coming off of a not so great year, hopefully I'm primed for a good year. I have a lot of young females that are like really primed and ready to go. I think I had like 10 or 11 female scrubs last year develop follicles and reabsorb, like just one after the next. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it was heartbreaking. So, but I've had a lot of times where a scrub female will go through a cycle, reabsorb her follicles the first year, and then lay the next year. So I'm hoping that that's the case with a lot of these girls. And, like another thing that I've done over the summer, I had just in my scrub room, I had everybody on paper, and now I have everybody in that room on bedding. So, I don't need to take them out as much. And, I can be a little bit more hands off with them, which inevitably can only be good as far from like a stress standpoint on the females, even though I don't, with most of them that are not super high strung, I don't really believe that a 5-minute interaction coming out of the enclosure and going back in really does that much harm to them. But
it could be a consistent interaction though, because every time they piss on paper, like if you've got a female that's cycling and she just wants to be left alone for those 3 weeks, and every week when it's paper clean day, you're taking her out and you're feeling follicles, and that's awesome that you're getting that anecdotal note of it. But again, it's, if she needs, I don't know scrub python reproductive physiology, but hypothetically, she takes 6 weeks to build follicles up to a size where she would feel comfortable ovulating. That's 6 or 7 times. Oh, let me palpate her. Oh, I got to take her out to change her paper. Whereas now it's, spot clean bedding. Arguably, even if you leave a little bit of those urates in there, a lot of snakes communicate via, chemosensation. So if the male's smelling that, maybe that'll force him to want to copulate more. So, and again, if you're getting advice from Mr. Ryan Young,
Python God himself,
the GOAT, got to give you props for asking him that Woma egg incubation stuff for me. So thanks, Ryan. And he probably has no idea who the hell I am. Who's this lizard nerd?
Well, he does now.
So thank you. But anyway, so I see what you mean, like sort of reducing the mundane tasks and keeping interaction with your female Somalia to when necessary.
Yeah.
And letting them do what's best for them. And it sounds like a good plan of attack.
Yeah, I think in over these last I think this is year 6 attempting to breed scrubs. I've relied really heavily on palpating my females for tracking their follicular development, and I will still do that, but hopefully this kind of forces me to be able to like go off of visual cues instead of just purely that palpating, because I'm just not going to be taking these females out of their enclosures quite as much as I used to. I think the main reason I will continue to is just to kind of like keep the nest box moistened, spray the sphagnum in the box just so it doesn't get super bone dry. But we'll see though. I'm just really hoping that like this actually works out this year. And like one thing I did last year that I'm not doing this year is kind of when I started to cool down, I cut food off, and I'm not going to do that. I fasted them all over the summer. So it was May, June, July, and then the beginning of August. Some young females I still fed, and then anyone who laid I was feeding as well. But any female that was like a good adult size, like 5 years old or over, and any female that like I had fed to cycle and they just got nothing over the summer. So hopefully that now that the food is back introduced, that kind of triggers them to all think like, all right, cool, the resources are plentiful now, let's do this. And I'm definitely noticing, like over the summer I would walk through my room and like snakes would start looking at me and stuff like that, but now they're coming to the front of the enclosure acting all hungry, and I'm like, all right, this is perfect. A lot of them are shedding right now. Like I would say in about what will probably be about a month window, I think every single female in the room shed.
Okay.
So especially with this, like how synchronized that is, I'm like, that can only be a good sign.
Yeah.
So
I had that at work with our we've got some of the locality mixed retics, and that's something that I've never bred before, but I've been starting to hammer food. I kept it, one of the females we've got at work, I kept her really lean over the summer. And then now for the past 4 weeks, I've been feeding her 2 jumbo rats a week. Okay. And after the second week, I started feeling little bumps. I don't trust myself palpating, but she's hugging the cold side more. And she just, like, that lower third keeps swelling and swelling. And she's pooping, but after she poops too, because, she's just eating that. And shed today as well. So, I know I'm comparing a retic to a scrub here, which it's an Indonesian.
Yeah, there are definitely differences, but there are probably more similarities than differences in breeding retics and scrubs. So retics seem to go earlier. they react better to bigger meals, and being hammered with food. Where I've experienced hammering a scrub with food actually being what threw them completely off their cycle. So anyway, I've gotten into that on, actually I think it was on the Reptile Rejects podcast where I talked about how I fucked up my my Malukan female last year by giving her a big meal right out of cool down. And
that's part of learning, though. I mean, that's my biggest thing this year is going to be seeing if I can do reticks at work, dry marking, and womas again, but with a different female. I just want to know whether or not I got lucky. But again, listening, shooting ideas off of you, listening to, what Cody's talked about when we interviewed him, tidbits of advice from Ryan when I've listened to episodes you've done. I just, again, it's trying not to change what I know works. And obviously in your case, not that I have any experience breeding Somali aside from that one summer I was with you in Indiana when you got that clutch. But, it's just, and it's been talked about before, where the blessing and the curse of the podcast world now is everybody's sharing what works for them. And so you hear a podcast and you think, I have to change this and I have to change this. Yeah. And sometimes, you kind of just got to go with what, works for you and make those slow, gradual changes. And eventually you're going to figure it out. I mean, what's the commonality between all the people who are successful? They've been doing it for 10 plus years. Right. I mean, this year marked my 8th year breeding water dragons. And like I said, that's 5 good clutches out of 12. That's terrible. But I'm not going to change anything. I want to see if it is the case of the move or the male combat we discussed, right? In your case, you're changing your feeding up, but relatively, since you're in the same location in Texas, you haven't moved. Your snakes are for the most part in the same enclosures. You're checking off the boxes of what were they doing last year and making a couple minor changes. And
I mean, I think that I've had my best successes on years where I did an extended fast for a period of time, and I'm just hoping that changing the period of that fast doesn't have a negative effect, even though all the females seem to be like doing what I think I'd hope them to be right now. So I think the main difference between 2024 and this year was in 2024, I fasted them through October, November, and December, essentially out of necessity. I planned around it, but like I knew that with how I was moving and how I had to get into my house and then refinish my garage after, everybody was like housed temporarily. I'm definitely not feeding them when they're like in subpar conditions. So, and honestly, I think the most likely reason why I had my egg binding issues was kind of like not a chronic, but like an acute, I guess would be better, like acute dehydration during that period. To me, that is really would make the most sense during that move, going from humid climate to really dry climate during like one of the more dry times of the year. But anyway, but I think the note that I'll take from that year was the increase of food before that period of, people like Rob Christian, and I think had it happen to him too. Same with Alexandra. Like I had it happen in my past as well, where the year that I moved, like that's when the scrubs bred for whatever reason. I think that the two of them also had that same exact experience. So I think just the, shit getting thrown for a loop of moving is what did it for them. That, where 10 females ended up laying, but we'll see, man. I'm just, I'm hoping I did stuff the correct way. I kind of like, I don't want to say I sacrificed the end of last season for the sake, but like once it was really obvious to me that, I'm fighting an uphill battle, pairing some of these females that like, maybe I'll get copulations, but I'm not really feeling follicles and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, all right, let's just really focus on the 2026 season, because at this point it's not going to help me to keep, holding on to my last hopes of the year. So We'll see. We'll see. I have a lot of females to try with, and they're all in pretty good shape. So time will tell, I guess.
Just watch them and do what you got to do. You know, respect all your females, and
yeah,
they should do what they'll do what they're gonna do, whether or not. It's tough, man. It's like that's something that I've been trying to focus on too, is just acknowledging that we're working with living animals. We have no control over them other than how we're keeping them. And I think sometimes it's just they're gonna go when they're gonna go. So you know, it's like you said, some girls reabsorbed and then they went the year after. I've always wondered that with some lizards in the wild, like, do we push them too much for the species that multi-clutch? Brian Waterloo talked about that, how lace monitors normally only lay one clutch, maybe two in a good year in the wild.
Yeah.
Captivity, people can get like 5 out of them. And think about like Chris Applin. He's noticed that outdoors tree monitors only lay about once a year, but I guarantee you they're going through cycles multiple times in a year. And it literally, it's a case where one of those cycles works because by the time of one of those cycles, she's got the fat reserves ready, and that's when she has enough calories to ovulate and lay eggs. Think about snakes in the wild. Maybe some species are laying every year, but a large apex predator like a scrub python, she probably goes through the motions every year, but she might have 1 or 2 years that just aren't good for her in particular. And then that 3rd year, she's got the fat stores and she has a good year of calorie intake, and bam, clutch of eggs. It's like what you're saying. If you had a lot of girls not go this year, and now that you're starting to piece together what you've done right, what you think you've done wrong, I mean, odds are that if they chose to reabsorb this year, that means they're going to have enough fat reserves already, plus the calorie intake that you're giving them now to lay clutches next year. I mean, in theory, right? Again,
right, of course.
No scrub breeding experience, but I'm just trying to connect the dots here.
Yeah.
You're saying so.
100%.
It's worth a shot.
At this point, the only females that I look at and I'm like, you can use some more food, the females that laid last year, that's really about it. So, you know, I like to think that's, you know, a good sign of where everything's at. But, you know, like, I feel like, especially considering that scrub pythons are still a genus of snake where it's, you know, they seem to breed like pythons as all pythons, except for like maybe bolins do. But they've never really been produced in large numbers by an individual. So I feel like I've always been like, all right, well, considering that fact, I need to have other things that I'm focusing on as well to fill that void. But the more and more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, is that really just like hurting my cause here? If this is really the thing that I'm the most passionate about, the most focused on, like if it's, I think scrubs are 40% of my collection right now. That seems too low, you know, not saying I should have more scrubs. I think I should have less other stuff. Like, I don't know, for that to be like my thing and it not even be half of where my attention needs to go. It's like, that seems like a poor calculation on my part, you know.
I mean, if you're going off in numbers, then like 80% of my collection is dubia and ivory head roaches. So
then, and most of mine are mice and African soft furs, but yeah.
No, it's I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, here I am having a better year with sailfin dragons technically, and yet water dragons make up the bulk of my collection, right?
Yeah.
So it's not an exact science. I think, again, this is year 2 in your new spot. You're just figuring things out.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe the odds are against you with, you know, clutches and luck with females, but you also got to take the wins, right? You didn't have any egg binding.
No.
And look at the ones that did breed, right? I mean, I remember those Arus when they were little. I think it's awesome that my favorite, you know, Wamina or whatever it is, the Jayapura northern scrub, that really big, beautiful orange male you have, I've got that super iconic photo of me holding. Like, it's cool knowing that snake bred. And now that there's high orange, you know, Wamina northern scrub pythons out there. I mean, so again, got to take the good with the bad. And I mean, I'd still say you, at least from what I've seen and what you've told me, like you had a pretty successful year. So,
well, I guess
all
I'll take
things considered.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm definitely happy with what I got. You know, to only have 4 good scrub clutches. Really couldn't have asked for a better 4 of 2 Halmaheras, the Arus, and then the F2 Rainline Barnecks.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. I was just thinking about this earlier today. Very different than from last year, but I only sold 1 scrub publicly this year that I produced. I mean, I didn't even post it, but like to like, I mean, yeah, 1. So I'm like, huh, okay, that really is not what I'm shooting for, considering this is my business. You know, is how I make my living. Like, that's not great.
Usually the best snake keepers are terrible business people, so it's okay.
Yeah, but I need to be both. I don't have a choice.
You're talking to the wrong guy for business here.
Yeah.
I just sell lizards.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess in place of selling those baby scrubs, I've sold other things. So I've done good business in that sense. But you know, I'm like, okay, let's add at least a 0 and maybe increase that first number from here on out every year as far as what I have to sell. But you know, I guess hopefully it all evens out in the end. But yeah, I mean, definitely very, very happy with what I got. And like, you know, to be able to like look at the crop of animals we produce in a year and be like, I don't have a choice but to hold back almost every single one that I have. It's not a bad place to be. You know, it's a pretty good spot. So definitely can't complain about that. But considering where we are at the show, I think it might be a good time to break for the commercials real quick. Kind of natural little pause. So sit tight, everybody. We will be back in a few minutes.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Green tree pythons, emerald tree boas, and plenty other arboreal snakes have been quite the popularity here at the Trap Talk Reptile Network, which brings me to today's sponsor, the Reptile Perch. Head over to the reptileperch.com and Reptile Perch on Instagram. See what type of design PVC perch is best for your arboreal reptile. But first and foremost, I would also check out David Brom's Green Tree Python availability on the website. You can also check out his Instagram just to stay current on any projects or any productions that he posts. Thank you so much, David Broms, for your ongoing support. Looking forward to seeing what you have to show in the 2025 season. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram and also head over to Mark's website. See what he has available Green Tree Python wise and be ready for quite the 2025 Green Tree Python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the Green Tree Python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the Green Tree Python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the trap. Treat. One of the biggest growths we have in the reptile industry today are the rare species of reptiles that aren't worked with. That's right. That's why I went ahead and partnered up again with Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. Brian works with species such as kahua geckos, gargoyle geckos, all species of tree monitors. He works with Abronia and many other cool species geckos that you can check out all on his website. Head over to sundownreptiles.com, see what he has available. Brian's one of the best doing it in the reptile industry today. He's been on the show multiple times, so make sure you check out all of Brian Susan's episodes on Trap Talk Reptile Network. But more importantly, for the highest quality of captive bred reptiles, make sure you head over to sundownreptiles.com and make sure you give him a follow on Instagram. Thank you again, Brian Susan over at SUNDOWN Reptiles. One of the things I love about being a part of the reptile industry is all the learning, okay? Learning can be fun, and I can prove that to you. Thank you so much to today's sponsor. It's Gary Scavino over at gs.reptiles. I highly recommend you head over to his YouTube channel, follow all this man's content when it comes to learning about rare species of snakes you could be keeping in the hobby, and also just finding out how easy a lot of these rare species of snakes are to keep in general. So thank you so much, Gary Scavino of GS Reptiles. Again, head over to his YouTube channel. Also head over to his Instagram to be on top of all of his current work and be ready for a big year over at GS Reptiles. Thank you so much, Gary, for your ongoing support. I really appreciate it. Chee!
Alrighty, we are back. So, question for you, Alex. Coming into the next breeding season, when it comes to some of the details of how you're doing things, are there any things that you were planning to change, be it, nesting, basking, incubation, anything along those lines? You're muted. Professionalism.
I know. Joe, come on. Give me a break. It's been a minute since I've been so, yeah, I wanted to try and do like a night drop on the Hydrosaurus eggs. That's just the way my my mentor, Scott, had done it. But I won't lie, there is part of me that knows that what I'm doing works. And so part of me almost would like to have a few more clutches under my belt before I experiment with pure Philippine sailfin eggs.
Yeah.
I've debated maybe dropping the temperature 1 degree. So currently my incubator is set for 83, and it does fluctuate a little bit. It's a hot box incubator, so it's not like the most insulated unit, like say a converted wine cooler or soda fridge, which again, I think is good. I don't mind if it drops, say, a couple degrees at night, and then it, it's at 83, sometimes hitting 84, 85 briefly during the day. So maybe unintentionally I'm getting a night drop. But what I think would be better if I had it drop set to say 82 is that I had noticed with the way I incubate the eggs, I cluster them together. There's studies that people have done with like grass snakes where they've found hatching is synchronized when the eggs are left together like they would be in nature. The snakes, as they develop, they detect each other's heartbeats through the shell. That's why, like, sea turtle nests of 100 eggs, the nest is 2 feet deep. How do the ones at the bottom that are 78 incubate at the same temperature as the ones at the top that are 86? Well, it's they're communicating roughly. And of course, eggs release heat as they mature and grow. So part of me has almost wondered with my bigger clutches of eggs that were 3 or 4 eggs, they hatched a little bit faster, and part of me wonders like if they got too hot near the end of incubation, because I noticed specifically with my the second clutch I got from the year, the 2 of the babies are just still a little bit smaller. They hatched out smaller than say the previous clutch, which was only 2 eggs. So I have 1 baby that's like perfect size at a month, and I've got 2 that hatched out smaller, and now they're still not as big as I would like. So I almost wonder if I'm going to do a constant temperature, instead of doing 83 where they're hatching right at anywhere from 87 to 90 days, if I drop that to 82, so that way near the end of incubation, instead of that cluster of eggs in the box being 84, 85, maybe now it's only 83, 84. And so the couple extra days might just make the babies bigger. And I don't mind waiting, 95 to 110 days for Hydrosaurus eggs to hatch, just because I'd much rather have babies that hatch out and can eat a full-grown superworm or a medium roach. It's just so much less work than starting them on roach nymphs. And, a smaller lizard, it's going to heat up faster. I keep my lizard room hot. So if a small lizard's eating really tiny food items, it's burning through them quick. Whereas instead, if I give them, 2 superworms a day versus a dozen roaches per lizard, it just saves me time. But that's probably something I'm looking to change as far as like the incubation. Again, it just comes down, with Tinley coming up, who knows, I might see a Herpstat one for a good deal. I think Spider Robotics always drops their price by like $20 or something at the show. So maybe I'll just swipe one of those up. But it just depends, man. I am, like I said, I'm just trying to focus on actually hatching eggs. And like I said, especially you don't see pure, well-documented Philippines around. And even then, if you do, it's Scott Corning and Casey Schultz, who have a wait list that's miles long. So, I I'm probably one of the loudest voices lately on the internet about sailfin dragons, but this is my first year breeding them. So like there's gonna be some available to people who reach out to me. So I just want to make sure, you know, if I want to establish myself in that circle with people who are consistent about breeding Hydrosaurus, I kind of want to make sure I can be producing before I, you know, try running the gauntlet on rare eggs. But yeah, that's probably one of the main things. And then basking wise, I haven't really I mean, keeping them is easy. I've been, you know, my first Hydrosaurus that I took in were, you know, large subadult, or not large subadults, they were large juveniles 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think I've got the care pretty dialed in, which to be fair, I can't even say that's me doing it. It's just listen to what Scott and Casey shit say, and you know, they laid eggs and they're eating and living and growing. So there really isn't much to you know, like I maybe change up some lighting stuff. I guess one thing I did change is I have one of them with a like the all-in-one, the mercury vapor bulb for heat and UV. Okay. Whereas, you know, most of them I just run 1 to 2 of the fluorescent tubes to cover the whole body of the lizard, and then I've got 1 or 2 of the halogen lights to, you know, create a full body basking zone. But
okay,
not gonna lie, it's kind of nice just having one big bright bulb that does all in one, taking up one outlet.
Yeah.
Versus 2 to 4. So, you know, if say that girl gives me good eggs this year, then maybe I'll do another one with a power sun bulb. And, you know, yeah, they're expensive lights, but there's also a fine line of, you know, how much electricity am I pulling per cage.
Yeah.
And even though the wattage for those bulbs is more, I just, you know, avoiding that tangle of cords and potential fire hazards, you know, it'd be kind of nice to have, say, mercury vapor bulbs and then just really bright low watt LED lights versus running 2 T5 bulbs with 2 incandescents. And, you know, we talked about it on our tools of the trade episode. It's definitely more of a thing that I worry about with all the stuff that I have, but, you know, just fires in collection. You know, I mean, it happens to people. And I mean, like we think about what happened with Vin Russo this year, that's terrifying. I know you've had Ari on in the past. Ari has talked to me about when he had a fire in his collection. My mentor Scott had so I'm very conscientious about that. You know, I try to make it a point, you know, once a month I'm checking all my outlets. I'm taking literally like a blow dryer and I'm just getting all the dust out of anywhere those outlets are exposed, because you don't want particulate materials collecting where there's electricity running through a live, you know, circuit, or not circuit, but power strip or whatever. I know that it turns the lights on. I don't know the terminology, but yeah, other than that one basking bulb, you know, the mercury vapor, I'm pretty much keeping everything the same and just letting the lizards ride with the rhythm of the room. And yeah, maybe just lower my incubation temperature by a degree for the sake of prolonging incubation and ideally not hatching as tiny babies, because I thought I hatched some big sailfins, and I have the first clutch. I mean, those babies hatched out almost 9 inches long. They were huge, but it was that second clutch, which again had multiple eggs. 2 of those babies were closer to around 7.5 inches. I was quite shocked about it.
Okay.
So yeah, I just think cook them cool, cook them slow if I'm going to do it at a constant temp. And I thought 83 was pretty cool, but just given the nature of the room, the fact that it does get pretty warm, especially in the summer months when the eggs are incubating, maybe if I even drop it a degree. So if it does go up, it's not like it's taken forever to lower. So
sure,
just some small thoughts. Maybe that doesn't even make sense, but
no, it does.
That's sort of what I'm working with right now. But
okay.
Same to you. How about scrub incubation? Are you still doing vermiculite and perlite mix?
Yeah. So man, I still don't have a perfect method in my eyes. You know, I think if anything though, what I've really come to the conclusion on with getting good versus bad eggs with scrubs, I think it really has a lot to do with the gestation more than the incubation. Because I've hatched scrub eggs, you know, vermiculite or perlite with a light grate, directly in perlite, directly in vermiculite, suspended over water, suspended over the little water crystals. And then this year, perlite, vermiculite mixture with dry sphagnum on top. I've hatched them in every arrangement of all of those mixtures, and I can't say that one of them was the best.
Gotcha.
I liked how this year went with, because the reason why I chose to go with the method this year was basically, using the sim containers, but without the grates in the middle, and just having the vermiculite and perlite kind of coming up to the level where the grate would be, and then having the sphagnum. I did that with my Spilotes eggs that I got last fall, and literally, like, I set up the incubator, how we always talk about, of the water basin in the incubator, some ventilation holes in the sim container, put it in there, and I literally did not open the incubator until they hatched.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's the best. And I was like, that's the best incubation I've ever had with any eggs. That was awesome. So I kind of figured I would do the same with the scrubs. And like with the Arus that had 100% hatch rate, that's what I did. But then every other clutch had attrition. But then, can you really equate that to the incubation medium, or is that probably more a heating issue pre-laying? So I don't know. The only thing that I've considered switching up this year is, and I might not even do it, is do the same exact setup, except also include the grates, and just place the grates like directly on top of that substrate layers to where it's really like touching, and then having the dry sphagnum kind of around the eggs. I don't know, because I feel like in the past when I've done suspended incubation, I've gotten a lot of denting from underneath. I didn't, I was like that. In some instances, it was fine. But then I feel like I had eggs go bad from getting too dry, and where like the thermometer, like the little sensor push thing, was reading 100% humidity in the bin, but then there's no condensation, and then they're concaving from underneath. I'm like, okay, this is probably not great. So that was part of my reasoning for doing like kind of the put like down into the substrate.
Give them a little bit of direct contact with the moisture, but not an excessive amount.
Right, exactly. And I didn't have any of that concaving from underneath going on this year. So I don't know. I'm torn between not changing anything and including those grates, because the sim container grates, they're very thin. They're nothing like the light diffuser, to where there probably would even be some contact there. And maybe I'm just super crazy overanalyzing this to the point of driving myself nuts. But I don't know. I hope that I will need a bigger incubator for them this year. So I think after being bullied by Ryan enough, I'll probably look for like some sort of mini fridge locally that I can get on Marketplace and tear up and make into an incubator.
What were you using originally? Did you have your hot boxes or?
Yeah, just hot boxes, and then I have a big incubator that's like one of is a converted restaurant cooler thing, but it itself is not in the best shape, and like it's not sealed everywhere. So that's what I ended up using for my colubrid eggs.
Okay.
And it did just fine. It worked out well based on the unit being bigger and there being some air exchange. It stayed cooler than the hot boxes did without any heat at all in the hot boxes.
Oh.
I mean, so I think I had the big incubator for the colubrid set to 78, and maybe in the winter, sometimes it turned on at night. Like it just ended up kind of being a stable environment that wasn't being heated at all. So, and I think that's part of why I may have had issues with some of my bull snake eggs getting a little too bogged down with moisture, is that it was just kind of like a humid chamber just kind of stagnating there. There were fans, but like where there wasn't heat being infused into this bedding. So, I mean, for the colubrid eggs that you are incubating, how are you doing that? What's your strategy?
Ours at work, we've got a Wilbanks unit. So it's
Okay.
just got the two really big fans. They're pretty airtight. I was surprised just because peak season, I had about like 40 clutches in that incubator.
Okay.
And yeah, I was checking in with my boss about it. And like literally the sensor push we had in here, just, we do 2-3 holes in the containers for the eggs. And just the residual humidity from even like, say, 4 clutches in there, it's just so well insulated. I mean, that thing, the incubator chamber stays 80% naturally. So we don't even do a tray of water in there.
Okay.
But I like personally for my lizard eggs, that's what I do is your method. I've got a tray of water in that hot box, and then I typically do a lot less moisture because of how I fully bury the eggs. I mean, it feels like damp sand when I have vermiculite or perlite. I mean, it doesn't even clump in my hands. It just feels damp. And then I fully bury the eggs in that, and then I just take 2 pinholes. So I'm relying more on the air moisture because I have such little airflow through those containers. But I'd say the airflow for our colubrids at work, like to compare it, is there's more airflow, but it's also just colubrid eggs are really hardy. So I think, they can handle drying out a bit, especially since most stuff that we're producing at that facility is North American.
Okay.
I'd say maybe in your case for the bull snakes, you could probably get away like with a colubrid incubator, just not having your tray of water in there.
Yeah.
These are the eggs nestled on good substrate. They'll do great. But
yeah, the ones that went bad, like I was going in when I was pulling the bad eggs, I'm like, the sphagnum that I put in there dry had dampened up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
well, the eggs will release moisture near the end of incubation too. So sphagnum's going to be absorbing that water vapor from the air. I've only incubated with sphagnum a couple times, and I've personally tried to avoid it just because if the eggs are, especially in a suspended setting, the eggs are drawing water vapor to meet their hydration needs. So if you have dry sphagnum in there, which in you're saying, like if there's a lot of water, the sphagnum is going to be sucking that water out of the air faster than the egg can because osmosis via water vapor is slower through the eggshell, selectively permeable. For those listening, I highly recommend checking out ProcDoc2 on YouTube. That's Dave Kirshner. Brian Waterloo mentioned him, but he has a whole series on breeding monitors. But the last episode about egg incubation, he goes over reptile egg physiology. And so you can pretty much apply that information to any squamate egg. And I took notes on that video religiously, and it's helped me hatch a lot of eggs at work, and then my own personal collection. And from what you're saying, Stephen, it almost sounds like, because bull snakes lay big eggs, Pitiophis in general. So as that baby develops near that final third of incubation, when it's expelling moisture, you have it surrounded with sphagnum, and now the sphagnum's absorbing that excess moisture that's in the egg box. And you sort of create that soupy environment, which unfortunately could cause issues. So
I'll have to check that video out. I thought I had seen that whole series, but I don't think I've seen that one.
I'll send you the link after that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, the issue though was the bull snake eggs. They went bad like 3 weeks into incubation, like early on. And it almost to me seemed that the moisture and the sphagnum was being pulled from the perlite vermiculite mixture underneath.
It's very likely too, because again, sphagnum acts like a big sponge. It's found in acidic environments. It's meant to suck water.
What I ended up doing was I just took some of the grates and put them down, and then put the eggs just on top of the grates, and the ones that were still good kind of rode out like that. But actually, I haven't even like posted a picture or anything. I just hatched a baby Trans-Pecos rat snake yesterday. Nice. One baby. I had one egg left. That I only had one good egg from the clutch that one of my females laid that I ended up selling them. But I just put it into one of the old egg boxes that I had in there that I had the bull snakes in that was just kind of still set up with the grate on it. And mind you, like this egg box was set up in March, and I put the egg in July, hadn't added any water or anything the entire time. And the egg hatched. Like I literally put it in there and I didn't touch it until every day I just walked past and I was like, all right, you're still there. And then I walked like, oh, the egg moved. Oh shoot, there's a baby. Oh, cool. So considering
geckos are an arid snake though too, right? So they might not be as moisture dependent.
Yeah, sure. But I think to me, it more speaks to just maybe I just had really like I could soak the medium that way for a python egg that's going to be at 87 degrees, but maybe not for a colubrid egg at 79 degrees.
Yeah.
Where like which I was in there, I mean, it lasted over 6 months, damn near 7 months of like being effective. So
it's freaking cool though.
Yeah, no, it's
reusing the media.
Yeah. So I guess what do you do for the colubrid eggs as far as the incubation medium goes?
Perlite. End of story.
But like squeeze test perlite. Like how are you doing that? Sure.
Clumps a little. Put the egg in the perlite. Forget about the egg for 55 days.
Well, no, and I think that might be what I need to do because vermiculite holds water a lot better than perlite does. Mm-hmm. So I think that may be the issue. Maybe like instead of doing 50-50, do like 75-25 or 80-20 or something like that. I think that may have been the issue as well. Because in the past, when I was 1 year, the second year I had success with scrubs, I intentionally did this incubator setup where I had a box that was eggs submerged into vermiculite, straight vermiculite, squeeze test vermiculite, the same perlite, and then suspended over water. And the eggs that were directly into the vermiculite ended up like getting overhydrated. Mm-hmm. They ended up hatching, but after doing some correction on that, the ones that were in the straight perlite, I had to add water to multiple times. And then the overwater ones were like fine, but not, I wasn't super thrilled. So I think that may be where I went wrong too, where I used too much vermiculite to the perlite, especially with the colubrid eggs, to where that vermiculite just didn't really dry out.
If you ever look at vermiculite and perlite under a microscope too, one of the biggest, this is going to be me being a mega nerd here about incubation theory, but vermiculite acts more like a sponge. Perlite is very porous. So when you're adding water to perlite, the water is being trapped in the perlite, but the outer shell of each perlite granule is physically dry. So in a sense, think like, again, let's go back to the sim box or suspended method. The egg is relying pretty much entirely on water vapor for its hydration needs. Yeah. Because even though it's on perlite or on a grid, the water is trapped inside the perlite. The egg is physically in contact with relatively dry substrate, other than maybe the beginning of incubation on perlite because you just soaked every surface with water. But that surface water evaporates, and what the keeper is relying on is the moisture molecules trapped inside the granule, like the pockets of perlite.
Interesting.
Vermiculite is the sponge, so the egg is in direct contact with a relatively moist material. It's like if you were to, take say I've got a glass of water here, right? The glass is the perlite. My hand is the egg. I'm not touching the water at all.
Yeah.
If I had a damp towel and I was touching the towel, my hand is more in direct contact with moisture. Does that sort of make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's and again, like my lizards, I do water dragons on perlite. I've done them on vermiculite, but the sailfins I've done on vermiculite for that exact reason, just because since the eggs are fully buried, I like doing really dry perlite, relatively speaking, and then, or dry vermiculite, relatively speaking, and then, per your suggestion, the humid incubator, so that way air moving in is humid, but the eggs are not crazy wet. Whereas I honestly think, like in my case with the sailfin lizards, if I had an overall physically dry incubator with the fans and I tried to get that 1-to-1 water perlite, I guarantee you I probably would have oversaturated my eggs. So again, I'm comparing sailfins now to scrub pythons, but in your case, as you said, the scrub python eggs they were oversaturated because they were in direct contact with more of a sponge medium.
Yeah.
Same time, they were drying out too much with perlite. I guarantee you, at that case, it's just because they're big eggs. They need a lot of moisture, and they were probably sucking all the water vapor out of perlite. So
the box itself in that case wasn't the most, like, it was one of those like purple handle, the purple snap lid tubs.
Yeah, the Sterilite Clearview boxes. Can you tell I've bought quite a few of those?
Okay, we got to just regroup for a second. Oh man, I can never underestimate your ability to know the exact details about products. It is an uncanny skill you possess, my friend.
I've bought so much of that stuff.
I have too. I couldn't give you the serial numbers the way that you can.
Dude, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna list the serial number out.
You just don't want to know that you can do it.
Yeah, that will not be a Kush's Corner exclusive.
Damn. What a shame.
Breeding update 2027, maybe.
Yeah, okay. All right. Have 5 serial numbers ready for us for next year.
Fair enough. I'll add a reminder on my calendar.
Good. Very good.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah, like again, too, those boxes with the latches, they're not fully airtight.
Right.
Whereas I say the gasket models, I mean, people talk about it all the time with the sim containers. Like the small sims have a much more airtight lid than the sim XLs, and that's what people tend to have success with if they do water in a sim XL. And I know plenty of people that have hatched animals or tried to hatch animals over water in the small sims, and the eggs get oversaturated. I personally think that was part of my issue this year, as I did try hatching water dragons in sims, and I had success with my clutch that was over very dry vermiculite filled all the way up to the grid. My clutch is incubated over water or with water jelly. Those are the ones that went bad. So, whether or not those were good, but I mean, those eggs look questionable to begin with.
Yeah.
But again, it's just small things like that, like understanding the relationship of the water vapor in the specific type of container with the specific type of medium you're using with the species. Like, I mean, it's you do the math that way. That's how many combinations. But
yeah,
that's why we have talks like this, because it really is about perspective and the type of animals you're hatching. Again, I can't compare scrub pythons to hatching Hydrosaurus or Bisignathus, but it's just worth making note of so other people can relate. But in summary, I guess colubrid eggs I use perlite, sailfins I use vermiculite, water dragons I kind of did what you did with scrubs. I've hatched them in sims. I've hatched them on perlite. I've hatched them on vermiculite. I did some with perlite and sand and soil because I said, screw it. That's what Mom laid them in.
Yeah.
And ironically, those were some of my best clutches that hatched this year. So, yeah, it's not an exact science, but I
mean, shoot, some of my best successes were ball pythons maternally incubated in a CB70 rack without external heat.
Oh, wait, you had yours maternally incubate when you were doing ambient?
Yeah, the last year in Indiana, I had, I think, 3 clutches of ball pythons, and I was just like, fuck it. We'll see what happens. And
it's badass, though.
I think I had 100% hatch rates, and they were the best.
How many days?
Like close to 60. A little longer than normal, but not anything too crazy.
Cool.
But like the babies were fucking perfect. They ate so well. No picky feeders, and I let them all shed with Mom. So I was just like, yeah, let's see what happens. Whatever, So that was kind of cool. I definitely I'm not sure if it'll be this year. Maybe if I have a really good year, I might try to let one female scrub do it herself, but that would be really cool to experience. So,
did you have a contact that did maternal with scrubs?
Yeah, I had a guest on here, Paul, who had produced scrubs, maternally incubated them. And I mean, his experience was super cool. That was a really fascinating conversation. So you know, to be able to give that a shot would be really neat. I would have to be, as he was, really on top of when the babies start moving, because as you probably remember, the ventilation in those PVC cages, definitely big enough for a baby scrub to be like, all right, I'm out of here. So as soon as they started to hatch, it would probably have to be like, okay, come on, you guys. Which would be, you know, it would suck a little bit, because that would be really cool to see like some of the behaviors. You know, now that I think of it, I do have a couple of enclosures, one in particular that have like those like kind of like the push-in vents, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, like the circle. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have much smaller, like the holes in those vents are much smaller. Unless the only thing I could think would be the gap in the glass in the front. All right, maybe if that female lays this year, I'll let her maternally incubate, and we're figuring this out right now. But yeah,
this is the breeding planning update.
It is. Didn't know that I was going to actually be planning the breeding and not just talking about it. But hey, that's what we're here for.
That's the perks of doing the show live. We just
yes, it is. It absolutely is. So yeah, I would really like to be able to give that a shot if it seems reasonable. Just, you know, why not? That would be so cool. And then especially like, I think it'd be really cool to let them sit in there for like 3 weeks and just see what you see. Where are they congregating? How is mom interacting with the babies? One thing that Paul saw that I was really fascinated by, kind of almost like workshopped the reason as to why on the show, which it's hard to tell, you know, as of now, whether this means anything, but he had a camera set up in the egg box, in the nest. And when the baby started to come out of the egg, for the first like 36 hours, if a baby started to like crawl out, she would take her tail and like whack them with it, and they would pull back into the egg. And you know, in my experience breeding scrubs, they take a really long time from pip to exit relative to other reptiles that I've bred. And the ones that have ended up coming out too soon, or at least what I feel like was too soon, left a lot of yolk behind. So I was almost curious, like if the female kind of smacking the baby with the tail was like, you're staying in there, you're absorbing all of your yolk, like, fuck you, you don't have a choice here. So, you know, that like, that was just so fascinating that like the mom would have that instinct in there to like, no, you're getting, like, I worked for that yolk. You're going to get all of that fucking yolk.
So you almost got to wonder too, if it isn't necessarily, well, I mean, yeah, I could see it in your case if you're saying the eggs take a while to come out, but even in that case, if the baby came out, almost like if the mom is acknowledging that there's like a hatchling scent of yolk, and that there could be predators right by where she's hunkered down, waiting for a little baby to just crawl out and then just get, you know, taken out. Just because I know, what's it called? Earlier that different species and order entirely, but I was doing Blanding's turtle surveys with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, and that was something we had been told is when we would go out at night, because that's when the turtles nest. I mean, I was out in fields till 1, 2 in the morning, but we would have to shoo away raccoons because they would smell the turtles when they come on land, and they just wait. And while the turtles are digging, you know, they'd seen it, like the turtle digs a hole, starts laying, an egg pops out, and the raccoon just grabs the egg and eats it. And they absolutely destroy the nests. Wow. So almost, I mean, think about Indonesia, you know, you're a big snake, but little tiny babies. I mean, monitor, or I mean, there's probably some big rodents or something, you know, which have excellent senses of smell. You know, what smells more than a fresh baby snake with yolk all over it? I mean, mom, you know, maybe that's why she waits till they shed, right? Get the baby smell off so they can sort of work undercover once she deems them ready to go. But again, this is all hypothetical. I mean, I don't think there's any research that supports it, but
that's interesting though, because I can imagine, like, let's say there's 10 eggs and like 1 or 2 babies are out way before the rest of the clutch. You know, what if that little baby slips by, but she still has to be looking at like, you know, watching over the rest of the clutch. But like, if they were all ready to exit the nest at the same time, she would exit as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I haven't considered that before, but that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What do you know?
Just a thought. I think there's way more to. I mean, but that's what makes working with reptiles so cool. Is I've been finally, like, on the mornings that I have free time, I've been reading through my library of just books I've accumulated over the years, just so that way I can not doom scroll on social media. And some of the older literature, reptiles are very cruel. They're cold and not smart or intelligent. And I think. Yeah. I mean, going back to how I sort of started this with my sort of experience in giving lizards different forms of stimulus, I think there's a lot we really don't know. And obviously our bias as humans, we're very reliant on visual cues, smiling and frowning and sadness and tears. And, these are animals that have spent millions of years. They literally lack the facial muscles to do so. But, I mean, who are we to judge, right? I don't know. It's just been on my mind.
Yeah. I personally believe that there are a lot more parental behaviors in reptiles that we don't get to experience that exist based on probably one, how difficult it would be to truly experience that as a researcher in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be there for such a specific moment. And to be in an area where you're not disturbing the animal, but yet able to fully observe them properly, like that alone would be pretty challenging. And then obviously in captivity, the fact that the standard procedure is there are eggs, we take the eggs, and then that's totally gone. But like with the rattlesnakes, for instance, and rattlesnakes have always been known as reptiles that are more parental. But is that because they are more parental than other reptiles, or because we don't have a choice but to let them, considering that they give live birth?
Yeah.
And I
That's
mean,
a good point.
Like these females, when their babies are in there, they are mad. They do not want you coming near them. They're typically like have kind of corralled the babies. Usually they don't stray too far for too long, at least until they shed. And the males, same thing. They'll be as protective as the females. It's fascinating, but like, is that really a unique behavior to those animals? I don't know. Like with something like a scrub python, I'd be really curious about maternal behavior, just considering, at least I've said this, and I know I'm definitely biased, but I think I'm also not wrong necessarily, but they're of a bit of a higher level of intelligence and intellect. Considering that even just with what Paul documented, very clear maternal behavior, I'm just, I wonder how much further it really goes. Wow. It'd be cool to find out.
Yeah. I wish I could relate, like, to some extent with lizards, but again, lizards kind of just dump the eggs and leave.
Right. Yeah.
What I have thought was cool, though, I guess, is it's been a bit of a problem, is I've had, usually you get, like, when my groups of water dragons, there's usually one or two females that are like the alphas. And I actually had to make a makeshift, what I called the delivery room this year, because I would have like some of these bigger, more dominant females lay. And I always collect eggs at night just because, I don't know, I'm very conscientious about, they lay, they put all that work, and then you just see, hairless monkey steal their egg. But usually 1 to 2, like especially peak egg laying season, if I had like an alpha girl lay and I had another girl that wanted to lay, if that other girl got near the flower pot, I've got big flower pots throughout the enclosure, so that way everybody's got different laying areas.
Okay.
But she would chase the other females away if they got near where she had laid. Almost like defending that was her ideal nesting spot and she didn't want anybody else to have it.
Damn.
And so then what I would have to do is these poor girls, I'd see them just start digging on the floor, and I don't keep bioactive substrate or anything because I want them to lay in the nesting spots. I just set up like a big 30-gallon tub filled with about 14 inches of soil, and I just put them in there, and bam, they lay within like 3 hours. Like, oh, I got to get these out. Probably for the best. But yeah, but then there are other times where, like, for the first time in my career, I'm guessing it was two of the more, less dominant females. I was digging up a clutch of eggs in a pot, and I accidentally dug a little bit too far to the right, and there was another clutch that had been laid in the same pot within the same day, no doubt, because like I saw two girls look skinny. So it's one of those where, do they know where they sit in that group hierarchy, and maybe they're like, hey, we're not terrible to each other. We can both share this site. Meanwhile, the other one is, I own these 3 flower pots, and they get not necessarily parental instinct, but sort of to some extent like egg guarding, right? People talk about that all the time with monitors. Take that male out of the cage, or else the female will kill him.
Yeah.
Some people choose to listen to it, and other people are so convinced that they can keep animals that have spent millions of years evolving to defend their eggs. And that's when you hear horror stories about it. Unless you're like Ari, where he has a 80-foot enclosure, where the male can literally afford to run away being chased by a female. If you've got a pair of lace and an 8x4x6 all the time, when that female is trying to run him off, congrats, there's 8 feet, for a lizard that can run 12 feet per second. Right. It's definitely interesting, but I don't know. It's
what's the longest period of time you've like had a clutch in one of the enclosures, whether you knew it or not? Like, how long do you think you've let one of them ride it out where the female laid?
I don't know, man. I had that happen this summer because there was an area where dirt had been kicked out of the pots so much that it started to pile up in a corner, and I ignored it. And then I was doing a substrate change. I was actually on the phone with a lizard breeder in Washington. And we were talking about egg laying. I was like, yeah, I'm just cleaning a cage. And then I dig out the corner, and there were 5 eggs in that corner. And they were big. Unfortunately, they didn't hatch. No, I think part of me honestly thinks that they had been so used to the daytime high and night drop that then I put them in a stable incubator, and it shocked them. Because those eggs easily had to have been a few weeks into incubation.
Wow.
But I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh crap, those are eggs. So, and the weird part is it's happened twice when I was on the phone with the same person. There was another time I was casually digging. I was like, yeah, I just want to check this nest box. And bam, I dug up 15 water dragon eggs. But that second time I saw the female look skinny. Okay. But honestly, if you want me to take that question literally, that goes back to the first time I bred water dragons, because I just got home from a volunteer experience one night and I found babies running around the cage. So those were in the cage the whole time. But I'd say probably at most a couple weeks. Otherwise, I look at my animals every day, multiple times a day. Yeah. At least 5 days a week in the event I have to leave for a week, a weekend trip, or I'm doing something. So usually I can time it down to roughly the day. And it's easier with the water dragons because, man, they just put so much of their body mass into those clutches that when they deposit eggs, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Sure.
Unless it's, I guess in that case, a female that I hardly see, and then I'm digging in that corner and I dig up eggs. So even I make mistakes. It happens. I'm not perfect. Yeah. Far from it, honestly.
Well, I guess you've already had that experience of hatching babies in the enclosure, so maybe it's not something that's too enticing at this point.
No. All I'll say is I remember when that happened, I caught 6 babies and I found 8 hatched eggs. So, yeah.
Ooh.
I rest my case.
There were supposed to be 8, but there are only 6. Not good math, bad math.
But yeah, I don't know. My buddy in Florida had that happen. He texted me because he has a really big group of water dragons. And he's like, by the way, apparently one of the females nested in a plant pot and he didn't even see it. And he's like, yeah, I caught a bunch of babies running around. But he has his in like a big 8x8 setup and then 4x2 nesting area. So it was cool. It can happen. Again, we've gone down the rabbit hole of substrate and incubation medium, and it's like, and those were eggs incubating in an enclosure that got hosed down every day. I mean, in soil. Nobody incubates with soil anymore, unless you're, maybe me trying it or you're Eric Haycraft. But it's really well-respected basilisk guy that hatches everything on soil. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, like I said, it's not an exact science, but things to consider for next year. I mean, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. I'll make the tweaks I discussed, and I'm honestly hoping I have a decent year. My biggest fear, I believe I've said it, is so the male Philippine sailfin, specifically with my work with Hydrosaurus, is the male Philippine sailfin that has sired all of this year's babies. He was on loan from a friend of mine who knew I needed a male.
Okay.
And so thankfully there is work, things I'm working on to acquire a male for next year.
Okay.
But that's going to be the test, because this, the male that I had on loan this year lived with my friend for 7 years, raised from a baby, lived with a female, never bred. I've had him less than a year. He's fathered so far 4 clutches of eggs. Hopefully more by the end of the year. But next year, totally new male, a younger male. Is he too young? He's only about 3 years old. Okay. And, all the girls that bred this year are 5 or older. So I don't know what the minimum age for a male is. Scott's told me he's gotten them around 3, but yeah, I'm optimistic, but at the same time, if I get all slugs, then we'll try next year.
Yeah.
Maybe 2026 will be the year of the water dragon. So if I don't hatch any sailfins, I can afford to have 140 water dragons.
Nice. I mean, I think the chances of that happening are very, very low, but
I hope so. I got to walk before I can run, man. Like I said, this is year 1 with Hydrosaurus. I very well could have just gotten lucky.
I mean, I doubt that personally, but you do never really know. So
who knows, man?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, man, I mean, we're kind of in the wind down phase. Any other topics you want to hit on before we get out of here?
Honestly, dude, I'm good to call it. This is a little bit different than I think our breeding season preview before. I know we sort of went more like into the pairings and stuff, and
yeah.
I mean, maybe save that for another episode, breeding season part 2. But I kind of just enjoy sitting back, shooting the shit, and just talking different.
We can do that real quick before we get out of here. Just kind of quickly hit on that if you want to.
I'll let you go first with your extensive list, because mine's pretty.
Yeah. Well, so I guess
pythons, colubrids, and venomous.
Yeah. So wise, I mean, I have a shot at a little bit of everything.
Even my favorite,
the Waminas.
Oh yeah, I guess those and the really nice yellow Clastolepis that I enjoy.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I guess all of the above. I would say the only scrub that I don't have the opportunity to breed are the keys, just considering I have 1 male. But yeah, I mean, Barnex, Northern Wamina, Biak, all types of Southerns, Aru, Halmahera, Tannenbar, Moluccan, all of the above, which would be pretty cool. I guess so far I don't have Tannenbars, Moluccans, Biaks. Are those the 3?
You'd know more than me on that, Ben.
Yeah, considering that I'm the one who's bred them. I'm trying to think. That doesn't seem like enough, but yeah, I mean, at least those 3 that I could produce that I haven't yet would be.
You said you're going to try Waminas again? That same high orange stuff? Okay.
Yeah, the same pair.
Maybe if I have space.
Yep. So I'm hopeful. I mean, she's like last year. So the first year I got her, she was like an adult, but she was really thin. She did cycle and fully slugged out. Then the next year was 2024 when she had the perfect clutch, 12 or 12. And then for 2025, she was thin. I got a lock out of her. She didn't develop. I'm like, you went 2 years in a row. You're not getting pushed. But now she's got really good body weight. And based on her timing, I would expect her to be one of the first ones to cycle. So that would be pretty cool. What's really exciting for me in the scrub world this year is that I have a bunch of captive bred females raised up, ones that I have produced, ones that I've acquired that are all like really ready. So I have 3 females from my first clutch of scrubs that are like 5 years old, big, ready to go for this year. So if I could get a clutch out of one of them or more, but at least one, I would be beyond thrilled. That would be like the coolest thing ever. And then right up behind me here is that captive bred Moluccan female that I have, and she's 4, so I'm not going to be pushing her too hard, but if she goes through the motions, I'm definitely gonna give her a shot. So that would be really cool. But yeah, that's a cool addition. Plenty of males that I produced are ready to go, but finally females are ready. And then colubrid wise, the gamut of the spilotes that I have, the Veracruz, the Yucatan, the Guyana animals, the Sulfurious, and then I have a pair of the 50-50 Tamaulipas, Honduras, Mexicanos from Jason Hood. Mm-hmm. They're adults now, so I'm going to be taking them to each other, which will be pretty cool. And then for the rest of the colubrids, it would be the Mexican pines, Kankakee bulls, Cameron Highland cave racers.
I forgot you had the Ridley Eye.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. The Stillwater hypo bull snakes, and then
you're doing blue beaties again.
My female's a year out still.
Okay.
Yeah, she's getting there. She's like five and change now. So she's eating like a medium rat or 2 small rats at a time as like a big meat.
Yeah, one more year. That'd be a good safe bet.
She's a 2023 baby. So
yeah, definitely, yeah,
way too young right now. And then I guess the last colubrid would be the Pituophis vertebralis, the Cape gopher snakes.
Oh, yeah, you've got some of the morphs of those, right? Is that what you sent me? No, not the
pair of the normals. Yeah. You might be thinking of the San Diego gophers.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. And that pair is still small. They're yearlings.
Oh, okay.
So that's that. And then for the venomous, I mean, not to jinx myself as to what already is copulated, but good variety of rock rattlesnakes, maybe some palm vipers.
Nice.
And
did you end up shelling the mangs? Some
of them.
Okay.
I still have some. My goal is to keep an adult pair and just keep it at one. But I had posted them all up for sale, but I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I don't want to get rid of all of these snakes. But
you wanted those for a long time. I was surprised. I saw that ad on Fauna.
Yeah.
Did my friend request.
You can have friends on Fauna?
Yeah.
Oh, I just found that out right now. Interesting. Oh, I'll have to go.
You're good.
I'll have to go check that out. But yeah, hopefully based on all the breeding activity of the summer, I have a good year with the venomous next year. I just really need to work on getting them cooled down this winter. So yeah, that's that. I mean, I have I think between 40 and 50 females of sorts to breed. So
good lineup.
I better get something good. And the olive pythons as well.
You still have your
yeah.
olive?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I've actually had them. I've literally had them cohab for most of the entirety of the year, and they're just chilling in there. I might have to go back and listen to like the dentist episode or the one with Cody Joe and really figure out what the hell I'm going to be doing with these snakes. But my female is 10 years old now, and
She should be good.
Yeah, she should. I you know, to me, like I'd love to breed the olives. They're not a super high priority, but
I've heard you need male combat for those.
Yeah, and I'm just not gonna have that. So
Fair enough.
I gotta do it without male
There's
combat.
got to be another trigger, but
Yeah.
Lycia.
Dennis produced with just 1-to-1, but I think like Ryan, Nick, handful of other people like definitely said that the male combat was a good component of what they were doing. So, but like this pair for me they're almost as much a couple of pets as anything else.
Yeah. That's a great snake.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're like, you couldn't have 40 olive pythons. Like I would, if anyone had 40 olive pythons, I'm like, you're an actual insane person and you should be institutionalized. It's like, okay, cool. They look the exact same over and over again. But like, I love having that pair. I mean, at this point I think I could count on one hand the pythons I have that are not 2 hands, but not a full 2 hands. Pythons that I have that are not scrubs. And I'm definitely gonna hold on to the olives. They're freaking awesome. So
yeah, Lysias is like that would be a fun episode. You should do a Python genre tier list. I'll tell you right now, S tier is
like what Joe D did with the colubrids.
Yeah, do that, but just the Python.
I disagreed so much with I didn't say anything, but I was like, wow, you couldn't have fucked that up more than you did.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry, Joe, if you're listening. I do listen to Colubrid Corruption just because I breed colubrids full time. But I didn't see that episode. I did see on the thumbnail he did Splendida dirty though. I love my desert king snakes. So
I had to look back, but I just remember. Like tiger rats and northern pine snakes weren't S tier, and I'm like, I'm out. Like you lost me. You lost me immediately.
Joe, he means well. You're great show, but
I mean, yeah, great show. Maybe some poor opinions, but we can't all have good opinions.
Yeah, do the Python tier list, but yeah, or like the Python genus tier list. I mean, what is it? There's like 88 species of pythons. You could probably go by species, but Lysis for me is all S tier. And honestly, I have to say thanks to you. I'm pretty sure at one point or another in my career, I've worked with at least one live specimen of every species.
Oh, yeah?
I worked at one collection that had Max, both waters, Savus.
Yeah.
And I think they were olives. So.
And then what do you got? The olives and the duns with?
Yeah, well, you had a duns in Indiana.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm kind of limited. For me, it's olives, duns, and Savus.
Yeah.
Was it? I never worked with Max. Never worked with water pythons.
And water pythons are underrated. I really liked them. They're kind of temperamental, but they were fun. Like, they always they just seem very reactive. Kind of like a Savu, but like Savus, as soon as you get them out, they're fine. Like a water snake, you got to work with a hook. I mean, I enjoy it. But even at work, we're raising up one Mac, and I like them. It was produced locally by somebody named Sonia K. It's like a really high freckling one. Real pretty female.
Cool.
Again, it's like, man, if I had the space and I could actually have the time to do like a snake room after hearing how low maintenance pythons are, that would probably be a genus. I'd just do Lysis.
Yeah.
But because that's your one day a week task, really, or maybe a couple times a week. And then that way, because the lizards are an everyday thing, and that's I only have so much time, but maybe something.
Dude, I'm loving the legless life over here, man.
Oh yeah,
this is for me.
Good stuff.
I don't know. I don't often miss lizards. I'm around lizards, but I'm not responsible for lizards. So, but yeah.
That's fair.
All right. Well, we're about.
All good. Yeah, like I said, I figured most people would want to hear what you were working with because it's going to be the same thing for me next year. Going to give Philippine sailfins another shot. As I said earlier, this is going to be the test. Different male, same females though.
Cool.
So all 3 are proven as of now, which is great. And then Chinese water dragons, and if I'm lucky, I do have one pair of the Sulawesi black sailfin lizards, Hydrosaurus celebensis, and that's like where the males are black and gold and black. That was the pair that I got from Brian Waterloo last year.
Okay.
And I don't really power feed them, but the females laid like 8 clutches of eggs for me. She's laying eggs, but the male just isn't as big as I'd like. And I've seen him try to breed with her, but I just, for lack of a better term, I don't think his hardware is up to size.
It's
so
still,
yeah, sure, yeah, but but I think, I mean, this year could be a real shot, and if not, I don't mind if they just keep growing and get big and awesome, and ideally 2027, 2028 at the latest for them. But I mean, they're a bigger sailfin, so it wouldn't be, surprising to me if they just take longer to reach maturity. Think about like a big lizard like the Cyclura versus a Tenosaura, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So even though I guess, they're in the same genus as the Pustulatus, but I mean, Celebensis can get big. I know Casey Schultz and Scott Corning, their males were about 42, almost 45 inches.
Wow.
Mine's right now, he's just past 30, probably almost 32. Like, he's up there, but I think, once he gets just right near over 3 foot, that's when I'd be expecting results. So yeah, female's right at 3 foot though. She's been growing like a weed. So nice. I'm happy with her. She's really pretty. So
that's awesome. Cool. Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Good stuff, man.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks again for hopping on tonight, Alex. This was a lot of fun.
It's been a minute, dude. But
it has.
A good conversation.
Absolutely. And let me know when you're down for another one. So let everybody know where they can find you.
As always, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Morph Market and Fauna Classifieds, just at Alex's Agamids. If you look up my name, Alex Myers, you can find all my publications in Reptiles magazine. Look up my name on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. You can watch all of the episodes that I've co-hosted with Steven. And on the Alex's Agamids YouTube page, I even have a playlist where it's just called Kush's Corner co-host episodes. So if you like hearing my stupid ramblings, well, there's a whole playlist full of them.
Hell yeah.
And some great, again, the episode with Brian Waterloo was pretty awesome. Cody again. We interviewed Zach and Clint from Colubrid and Colubroid.
We did.
So that was awesome. You mentioned Joe. You should get him on your show if you haven't already. So
I know, yeah, I've been meaning to reach out to him for quite a while now. Definitely something I need to do.
But just obviously, comments. Feel free to shoot me a message on social media if you're interested in purchasing a water dragon or want to get on the wait list for sailfins, or just feel free to follow my work if you think it's cool. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you everybody for checking out the episode. Catch you all back here next week for a new show.